What's up, y'all? It's your boy Kairos, and today I'm bringing you the definitive guide for Havoc Demon Hunter in 11.2. Now, just to start this off right away, our stats are going to be versatility is our main stat at 25 to 30%, which seems to be kind of the rule to every class in PvP, unless if you're like a Mistweaver monk or something like that, right? So, mastery as Demon Hunter is pretty much the only thing you're going to stack. You're going to stack as much mastery as you can. I would say get your max, but it's one of those things where once you hit that max, you can also get some haste, which feels really good, especially since I do have a build that's not just Aldrachi. That's really good. And then for that, you're not just going to run tier. You can run crafted gear as well. Which feels pretty good. I feel like there's a lot of hero talent specs this season that are actually really good that you're not going to run with tier. That with the damage and the way it scales is really high. Especially with Fel-scarred on Demon Hunter with Immolation aura and stuff like that. Or basically the Thunder Warrior Fury spec, which does a lot of damage as well, sustain wise. It just buffs all your damage. But let's get it right into this. So as far as enchants, you're going to run Leech on this thing. On the Rishi Wraps, I got to upgrade that. You're going to run Leech on this. You're going to run the Speed, because we can't have Leech on boots. As far as the weapon enchants, I feel like the thing that most people need to realize is with the enchants that you can run, I think most of the time it's mostly secondary stats that you don't have. So I tried to mid-max my mastery, but I think one of the things I suffer in my rotation is not always having enough fury. So I might be running haste after a little bit, just because it feels so good on Demon Hunter, especially if you're going to run Fel-scarred or whatever it might be. It just depends on your preference. I've seen Demon Hunters run Fel-scarred, and they absolutely pump. They actually do insane damage the entire game. But as far as the rings, full mastery, neck full mastery. I have haste mastery on this piece. I like having haste on Demon Hunter. It feels good. And since our stats are so high, we're going to have more versatility than we did last season, so we can play with our stats a little more. So there's that. I think Demon Hunter is one of those classes you can kind of theory craft a little more, but it's pretty straightforward. Max out your mastery. You get movement speed and damage, so that feels really good. I have 0 leech, but Demon Hunter still heals for a lot, so there's all the stats and everything, enchants, stuff like that. But for my personal preference, I'd mostly run mastery, stat increase with the, I don't remember the enchant, what it's called, but basically it gives you main stat and procs a little bit of damage, right? Embellishments, you're just going to be running the, once you have a socketed piece, you're just going to deal a little bit of random damage. And you're just going to run that ×2 on your rings and neck. It's pretty much the cheapest way to do it. That's the best one that I found overall for every spec in the game. Not to get too deep into it, but that's pretty much it. I think everybody runs it as far as the DPS. Otherwise, if you're a healer, you're basically running energy. It's like energy redistribution or whatever. It takes like 2% of your health. It just, whatever it might be. But there you go. So as far as enchants on embellishments, that's all out of the way. I have 2 builds that are really good right now that I feel like are that once for the tier and once for not the tier. It's kind of one of those things where Aldrachi does enough damage where it's kind of hard to justify the Fel-scarred build, but Fel-scarred I think still has its place, even though it does make us a little more squishy, but our AoE damage is significantly high. Even our single target with it is very high. So there is that. Demon Hunter's damage is wild right now, regardless of how you look at. So we'll go right into the 2 specs. Don't pay attention to this. This is last patch. This is something that I theory crafted and it worked last patch, but I don't really like it now. It just doesn't feel like it. So with the Aldrachi Reaver build, pretty much your whole instigation for Aldrachi Reaver is doing as much damage as possible, but your priority is to pretty much get as many soul fragments as you can. So you want to be able to be up on the target as much as possible, so you can get Reaper's Glaive, which is your big hero talent. Does a lot of damage. Your Fel-scarred ends up being like your top damage or whatever it might be, and it feels really good as far as just raw physical damage. But the only thing I don't really like about the whole bleed build for DH is, instead of being kind of like a brawler, you're more like a, you can use it to your advantage to be able to kite and still be able to pump a lot of damage, because that bleed will tick for like 800k for 3 ticks. It's quite a bit of damage, right? So especially when games start getting into rotting, into dampening and stuff like that, you can rot a lot of people with Reaper's Glaive, which feels really good. And then I have the Chaos build. Now, there is a distinct difference between these 2 builds. And the major one is really simple. One's a rot build. One's rot. And one is just consistent damage. They're both... DH has just consistent, endless damage anyway. It doesn't really matter. But that's pretty much just where it's going to go as far as DH is concerned. Now, the burst difference between these 2 specs is actually kind of funny. So, your priority on Fel-scarred, from what I've seen, because of how it works with Immolation Aura, with the fire inside and stuff like that, where when you press Immolation Aura, there's a chance that it refunds itself, or basically it doesn't go on cooldown, so you can use another one. So pretty much the whole idea is Immolation Aura, Immolation Aura, Immolation Aura until you're out, and then on cooldown. And then you pretty much follow your same sequence of events with everything else that you've got on your board, basically on your talent or bars, right? So, you're gonna keep your Fury going, you're gonna spend your Fury, and your major thing is keep Chaos Blades spent, keep Blade Dance on cooldown to retain your Mortal Strike. And I do have so I was running 3s with this a little bit. There's your Mortal Strike. I'll change that so I don't accidentally link you one with all the stuff. And this is why I like the haste, because it actually reduces the cooldown on that. We don't have 100% uptime on our Chaos Blades, or our Blade Dance rather, for our Mortal Strike. So it's kind of frustrating, but pretty much the rotational thing is Immolation Aura all the way. And when you want to burst, essentially burst with your I-Beam, which actually gives you Demon Surge and stuff like that, which also increases your mastery with this thing here. There's 2 ways to look at this. I like this talent, but honestly, the thing that I see is Immolation Aura has 2 yard increase and a 50% critical strike bonus. I think Flamebound, regardless, once your mastery is maxed out, is going to be the best one. I've played with both. I like the big mastery, but it's just one of those things where your actual Immolation Aura is taken for 500k, 600, 700, 800k. And it feels crazy. It feels really crazy, especially with all the AoE damage that you have. But pretty much with this build, I prefer this build personally. But your whole rotation's going to look like this. You're just going to use Immo. You're going to use your thing, and then you're pretty much just doing this, right? So, and you can use Purge and cooldown and stuff like that. I mean, that's pretty much your whole job, and then you're just going to be using all your damage. But just as a and I know I'm hitting AoE, but this is what your damage looks like, right? I think it scales higher in PvP for sure, I believe, but you can start to see where your Burning Blades is one of your top damaging abilities. Demon Surge hits like a truck, and it's reduced when you hit 3 targets. But Demon Surge, Immo, Burning Blades, I-Beam, they're always some of your top damaging abilities. And Sigil of Flame actually does deal a lot of your damage. So, but as far as bursting, your whole thing, it's pretty much the same sequence of events. So when you use Metamorphosis, which is the big, 2 or 3 minute cooldown, I never know what it is, to be honest. Because there's always some kind of reduction on it in PvP, as far as the whole thing. Demon Hunter, there we go, 2 minute cooldown. It increases our damage, increases our leech, increases our haste, stuff like that, right? Okay. So it's the same thing. So when you pop Metamorphosis, you're going to use all your Immolation ores. It's going to reset everything. And this is assuming you have before you meta, you've already used I-Beam already. You want to make sure you put I-Beam on cooldown right away with your Sigil of Flame. And that's pretty much where it's going to go. And that's kind of what it is. But it's the same sequence of events. Immolation Aura, and then when you're ready to use that next I-Beam, you're going to use Sigil of Flame to get that big increase. Or, if you're not running the Mastery, where I swap the talent, like right here, I just like it for the Fury that you gain and the huge amount of damage that you get from it. So there's that, right? That's what I prefer. So, Aldrachi Reaver is a little bit different. So, pretty much, here's how it's going to go with Aldrachi Reaver. There's not a lot. I think it's a lot simpler than Fel-scarred, but basically, the way I like to open is pretty much like this. I'll use Vengeful Retreat, then I'll use the Hunt. It gives me a guaranteed thing, and then I'll use my big 1 minute cooldown, and then I'll usually combine it with my thing, and then whatever that thing is called. I remember all the class abilities. It's kind of annoying, but I'll basically go just for reference on the spellbook here. I'll pretty much go Vengeful Retreat, because most classes try to avoid us, stun us when they see the Hunt going off, right? So, or I'll usually pre-use it and then use the Hunt, because you can kind of cast it kind of midway, I feel like. But basically the way to think about it is your Immolation Aura and your Sigil of Flame versus Fel-scarred is basically like a resource builder rather than a damage dealer. So you can pretty much Immolation Aura, Sigil of Flame anywhere on the ground, it doesn't matter. It still deals a fair amount of damage, and it gives you soul fragments. So that feels good still. But pretty much your whole burst. One thing you do want to kind of protect is your Sigil of Spike. Don't miss it. Usually cover it up with a stun. That's just me. So like, I'll use Chaos Nova and then my Sigil of Spike, right? Immediately after, just so I make sure that thing hits. Because if you miss it, you don't get the soul fragments. So, and it's a free, 2 million spell raw. Normal hit. I've had that thing hit for 3.5 billion on a crit. So if you miss it, you're going to be missing out on a lot of damage, and especially if people are stacked, it's just, it can hit for, you know, 5+ million, 4+ million more. You know, it's just one of those things you want to make sure that that ability lands no matter what. So use Chaos Nova, Sigil of Spite, and all that. As far as everything else, it's pretty much, as far as the PvP talents are concerned, there's a few ways to look at it. So Blood Moon, I've always ran Blood Moon. And the reason is it generates a soul fragment. It heals you because you purge. And there's a 5% chance that it goes to a greater soul. And it increases your damage. I believe it's by 20%. And I've had games where you're purging every 10 seconds. Where you're doing that so often that it really does not matter. I think Blood Moon is one of the lock-ins because getting a free 20% damage increase is nuts. Especially in this patch. It's so bursty, you can pretty much burn someone down immediately, right? As Demon Hunter, because their damage is so high. So, there's a way to look at Glimpse. This used to kind of be your lock-in talent. It's still really good. There's a lot of classes that do a lot of CC. I like to use it versus pretty much everything. I've avoided full setups from Rogue Mage. I've avoided all kinds of stuff that would normally get you CC'd or even killed, because a lot of classes like to stun and burst right away really, really hard. But I found that Glimpse, even with that damage increase, even if someone's hitting you really, really hard, Glimpse can immediately save you because it reduces damage taken by 35% until you land. And it takes about a global for that. So, and that's just a free, 20-second thing, right? So that feels really good. So, I don't think Demon Hunter has a lot of good PvP talents. There's really only a few that are good as far as the Havoc. It's pretty much Glimpse. Rain from Above. I might get some hate for this. I think there's two differences between good Demon Hunters. I think there's the good Demon Hunters that run this talent, because they never run it. And then there's the bad Demon Hunters that run it, and they do nothing. Right? It's like their top damaging ability. So, the way to look at this talent is really simple. If you're not in a casual battleground, or if you're not in World PvP, don't run this talent. If you're running it in Arena, all people are going to do is press grounding and walk away from you. Or Warrior Spell Reflect and walk around the pillar and get a full reset, because this ability throws you in the air for so long that sometimes, yeah, it might be good. It might be situationally good to get a reset for yourself. But I find that with everything else that you could run, it's just not a staple. Compared to pretty much these three lock-ins, which is Blood Moon, Detainment, and Glimpse. The only time I'd really ever change anything is to Sigil Mastery, and the main reason is just to reduce the cooldown on Sigil of Flame to get the Master increased, or Fel-scarred. So that's pretty much it. As far as the PvP talents, that's pretty much all I change. So, yeah, I mean, your rotation, there's a few ways to look at it. It's basically just a simple priority. Have I used Chaos Blades? Okay, do I have Essence Break? And you're never going to use Essence Break alone. You want to use it in Metamorphosis because all your spells are empowered. So that's pretty much that simple. It's don't use certain things like Essence Break until you're in Metamorphosis, and then you want to make sure you have a Chaos Blades, or a Blade Dance and a Chaos Blade, for example. Right? You want to make sure you have Fury, so you're not just standing there. I don't have anything to use Essence Break afterwards, right? It's, basically just this. It's this simple. It's boom. We got an Immo Aura. We're going to build our resources. We're going to use our big thing. We're going to Chaos Nova, Essence Break, Chaos Split, or Blade Dance. And that's pretty much the whole rotation. That's your simple priority. This is all it is. If you want to look at the abilities that are being pressed down below, and then you're going to purge on cooldown, that's pretty much your priority is pretty much just that. And then Chaos Blades, or Blade Dance on cooldown, purge on cooldown. And this is pretty much it. This is basically Demon Hunter. You know? I-Beam. And yeah, I mean your rotation's really easy. It's Chaos Blades for your Mortal Strike, and then just build your resources. Do that, right? But don't burn your Fury out. You know, slow your rotation a little bit, especially until you get more haste. That's my personal opinion. Or just min-max the hell out of Mastery and just go from there. It does a lot of damage, having all the Mastery, and I like being able to move faster. But anyway, so as far as the whole thing, enchants, embellishments, the whole thing, I'll put these two talent builds down below, and you guys can play either or. I think both are more than viable. I think Aldrachi in a lot of ways will come out a little bit better. But it's hard to tell because the thing with Fel-scarred is you are squishier versus Aldrachi, but you have so much cleave with Fel-scarred where the only thing I can really justify not using Fel-scarred is versus mages and stuff like that. But even then, you can run it and then run things like Cleanse by Flame, which dispel the root, so you can always be mobile, so your healer doesn't have to dispel a root for you immediately to get rooted again. So that's one thing where I do like Fel-scarred. Yes, you are a little bit squishier, but you're way more mobile with Fel-scarred for sure versus Aldrachi. It's kind of that weird combination of where a lot of Fel-scarred's damage isn't direct like it is Reaper's Mark, but it's pretty much just the passive, explosive, random damage that can absolutely one-shot kill pets. And just, I've had games where it's like, it just deals so much damage, like you can just kill people with it. It feels good. So does Reaper's Mark. Everything about Demon Hunter feels good right now, in my opinion, and I'm glad I could bring this guide to you guys, and I hope you all enjoy. I'll put some talent, all the talents and all the stuff down below that you're gonna need to succeed, and you guys have a good one. It's good giving you this guide. See you later.